Colleagues, welcome to the LGMA webinars towards COP29. This is monthly organized by ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability, in its capacity as the LGMA focal point. We'll just let 2 minutes, probably one more minute for all our participants to settle down, and then we'll kick off. Great. I think we are almost there. Kata, shall we start recording? Or is it
Yes,
already started?
we're recording.
Okay,
Go
we're
ahead.
recording. Great. Thank you, Kata. So, colleagues, friends, welcome to the first webinar of 2024 for Local Governments and Municipal Authorities Constituency. Once again, my name is Yunus Arakan. I am the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, and I'm serving as the focal point of the Local Governments and Municipal Authorities Constituency. This session is being recorded, and we usually take around 1 hour for these during the webinars. We prefer that we go through the presentation first, and then we open the floor for question and answers. But you can also anytime type your uh, inputs in the chat box or the Q&A box. We have in these webinars time to time guests, but today I will take it overall, but we will like to make it as much as interactive as possible. So we would like to also invite colleagues to actively engage as much as possible. These sessions are also repeated twice every month, especially in order to accommodate the time zone differences, so that today we are starting every time we are starting with the session in early morning in the European time zone, so that our colleagues in the Eastern Hemisphere can join us. Then we repeat it in the afternoon in European time, so that the Western Hemisphere colleagues can also join us. So with that, I would like to inform you that this is basically consisting of 3 parts. We have a background, especially since we are starting a new era, a new year. It may be good to refresh ourselves about our constituency, our achievements so far. Then we will have a brief overview of what we have achieved and how we have engaged towards COP28 and at COP28. But obviously, majority of our discussions will be about our journey this year and how are we prepared to this another exciting year, but also it's not just 1 year, but the whole era, let's say. Without further ado, LGMA abbreviation, you're familiar, so many abbreviations in the climate jargon, and this is one of them. But in short, we are the voice of subnationals, cities, towns, regions, states, metropolitan governments, since 95 in the UNFCCC process. We intervene into the negotiations, we contribute to the action agenda, we collaborate with the presidencies to support their planning for the COPs, annual COPs, but throughout the year, we engage with the Friends of Multi-Level Action, which is the national governments, so that we can make sure the decisions are adopted and our contributions are tabled by the national government, because this is a party-driven process, which means the national governments, usually ministers of environments or ministers of climate change, who take the lead in this process. We have a couple of engagement opportunities. It's not just only the year round at the end of the year. So first of all, these webinars are monthly. We try to schedule it as much as possible towards the last Wednesday. We try to keep it every time Wednesday, but this month we had a slight amendment. The list of agendas, the list of webinars scheduled already throughout the year is already available. If you look at your website, you can register for both sessions independently. And once you register yourself, you receive a calendar invite so that you can automatically receive the updates, including the link to the presentation and the recording as well. That will be in your mailbox. Meanwhile, you can also consider to join or enroll to our monthly bulletin. This is also monthly, and we are usual planning, that scheduling it, that it comes after the webinars that we convene. Therefore, this month, the January edition will very likely be in February, and we will kick off from then onwards. Um, what I was thinking that because when we were in Dubai, those colleagues who remember, there were a number of questions about the local action summit, how much it was remarkable, or whether what is the difference between the previous sessions. So I thought, since COP28 closed an era, it would really be good for us to just take a step back and to just have a bird's eye view of what we have achieved. It's 31 years, 92 to 2023. So we can think about this era, or this 30 plus years, in four main, let's say, phases. You can say the first phase is 92 to 97, in the sense that UNFCCC was during this period negotiated, it was adopted at the Rio Earth Summit. It was then entered into force. It took a while and started to have its own annual conference of parties. And in 97, they negotiated and adopted the Kyoto Protocol. That was the first era. From our side, from the subnationals or LGMA, how did we engage on that? Obviously, we have started with the perception that the local Agenda 21 will apply. Obviously, the biodiversity, desertification, and climate are the three conventions from Rio Earth Summit. Um, yes, we were there, but the way we were engaged, the official process was much, much less than what we were engaged in the local Agenda 21. There were two major networks at that time. I'm talking about 30 years ago, ICLE and Climate Alliance. ICLE is a global network, Climate Alliance is a European network with collaboration with the Amazonas. And we started the Convene Municipal Leaders Summit, our own projects, campaign. And obviously, during this era, we have achieved that we as a constituency are recognized in the process. We were the first three, together with business and climate, environmental groups, which is called now Climate Action Network, or climate justice, or demand climate justice. So there were three groups: local governments, and the name is also important: local governments and municipal authorities, um, the business and environmental groups. So there is a gap of, let's say, 10, 10 years, let's say 10 years or so, because during these years, our engagement were merely having a side event or having our own summits along the outside of the specific agendas of the COPs. We were engaged with parties and UNFCCC secretariats always, but we were literally outside, not engaged. And this process kicks off 2005 onwards. Kyoto Protocol entry kicked off a new era. There was US and Australia, the major Annex 1 countries who were not interested in Kyoto Protocol. Europe and the rest was trying to take the process forward. In Bali, there were a decision to kick off an era. This will define the post 2012 era, and then it was expected that this will be concluded in Copenhagen. This was the UNFCCC era, or this was the UNFCCC's strategy during these years. And from our side, how we have engaged in this era, we, first of all, the US Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement was remarkable in 2005 when Kyoto entered into force in Montreal. They presented 1,000 mayor signatories to they shared it to the UN, saying that if the US federal government is not in, we are in as the mayors. Inside the Europe, there is also another interesting experience was rolling out European Covenant of Mayors, an initiative of the European Commission, one of the first examples of multi-level action. There were new networks, partners. So our family was growing. We have C40, UCLG, Regions for the Climate Group, cities and states. And in Copenhagen, we had the first ever local governments pavilion. What we have achieved, we have collectively started to make a more systematic advocacy campaign. That was the local government climate roadmap. Recognize, engage, and empower local governments. And that time, with our collaboration with the subnational governments, were also evolving because it was a relatively newly growing community. So then the second era came, Copenhagen failed, we did not give up. Starting from 2020 until 2015. This is another era. This was the time like a damage control shipwreck from Copenhagen. UNFCCC made an enormous effort to make sure a new regime is being built, but built on trust, being recognizing the realities of Annex 1, non-Annex 1. Of course, this was the negotiation track, Cancun and ADP. Those abbreviations are the negotiation groups as well. And we were also actively involved. This was track two, track one negotiations. Then it was interesting. Lima Paris Action Agenda came up outside the negotiation agenda, which had demonstrated its first example by creation of the Nazca platform. It was the first ever visibility of commitments of cities, business, regions in the process. How we have made this possible because throughout these years, we have supported by developing our own initiatives, Mexico City Pact, Carbon Climate Registry, Durban Adaptation Charter. We had new partners, CDP, under two coalition evolved. Resilient cities were keeping every year in bond and momentum to connect ourselves to the negotiators. Compact of Mayors was announced in 2014 as the collaboration of Bloomberg, UN Habitat, the three networks, the major networks. We had Friends of Cities being established. We had Global Environment Facility adopting a holistic agenda. So we all reached to Paris Agreement with these achievements. The importance of all levels governments are recognized in the Paris Agreement preamble. That was remarkable. And of course, immediately we started, this is the next phase, implementation of the Paris Agreement era. There were NDCs, there were implementation of these NDCs. Nobody was aware of it because they were not consulted before Paris Agreement, but it was officially adopted. So it was a task to deal and connect to them. Marrakesh Partnership, high-level champions, was new actors in the process. We had numerous working groups there. Talanoa dialogues were created to have these discussions about what is a Paris Agreement and how do you work in that. High-level champions came into our life, and especially very actively with 2021 onwards, or 2022 on 2020 onwards. And last year we had 2 years stock take. We, from our side, we have responded to this Paris Agreement very aggressively. Cities IPCC, we have an agenda in the IPCC. Global Covenant of Mayors was announced as the merger of Compact of Mayors and the European Covenant of Mayors. Climate emergency declarations were everywhere at the councils. We have races to zero and resilience, breakthroughs. We have reporting platforms, aligned, streamlined, CDP clay track, daring cities pushing the climate emergency agenda, Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda. In Sharm el-Sheikh, we had an output surge. We had the first ever urban ministerial. And of course, in Dubai, we will talk about it. We will have the chance. During this era, we have two major legal, again, achievements. Glasgow Climate Pact, again, a preamble, but this time it's a bit more specific. Multi-level for the first time was entered in the negotiation document of the UNFCCC and the UAE consensus. We will discuss more. We have officially in the operative paragraphs urging parties for multi-level action. So Dubai was the last 100 meters of this long journey, but it was, of course, it took us to a complete new era, and this new era will have its own history. It will have its own processes, and we will be continuing to engage in that, just like we have been actively involved, trying to influence. So let's have a bird's eye view. Outcomes, of course, numerous decisions were adopted. So many announcements came up, but officially, the biggest bulk of the official outcome is the Emirates consensus. It consists of seven texts, but there are several other paragraphs and several initiatives as well. So Emirates consensus, just a small part of it. Why is COP28 historic? It was ambitious. It was for the first time the language of transitioning away from fossil fuels, together with energy efficiency and renewable energy, loss and damage fund, and a roadmap to mission 1.5. This has not been in any of the previous COP decisions. It was inclusive. The World Climate Action Summit engaged with non-party stakeholders, not just a side event, but it was a part of the process. And in that sense, we had really very good dialogues to improve our dialogues with the parties and the presidencies. We have noticed that the climate debate is going beyond mitigation adaptation nature, food, culture, health. All these topics are in the decisions, have its own now new eras. Um, and multi-level is very clearly there. Not just the decisions of the global stock take, but we will just show this in another one. But we also have a champ initiative for the first time, nations committing for working with local and regional governments. And it started with 63, we ended up 71. Second, urbanization ministerial was impressive. And we have LGMA. We demonstrated how we have reinforced our diversity, unity, and impact through the local climate action summit, the ministerials, and the pavilion that is our home for our engagement. So it is really, if you look at it, it was literally a par to the Rio era at the beginning of this. So this is really opening doors for us, very, very wide open. In concrete terms, we have three paragraphs on subnational direct access to loss and damage, which will have impacts on other climate finance procedures. On the global stocktake, we have seven paragraphs, including 161 and 191 for roadmap towards COP13 Belém. And on the adaptation, we have five paragraphs. That's how we are being engaged. Again, the importance is that we are not anymore in the preamble, we're in the operative paragraphs, and that is really, really important. We have been preparing for COP28 with an expectation that it will be remarkable for us because we were busy during the year, throughout the year, across all continents. We have been engaged in all intergovernmental processes. We have built upon our achievements from Sharm el Sheikh, from G7 to Amazonas, from the Climate Action Summit to Africa. So everywhere we had made sure that our voices were heard. We have improved our partnerships, our collaboration with national governments. Before reaching to Dubai, we have announced our position paper statement on all the agenda topics of COP28. And this was endorsed by remarkable collaboration of both networks, but individual cities and states. I think it was more than 70 partners who has really made our who have made ourselves to unite and position ourselves as the strongest collaboration. That really helped us also to provide support to the LCAS and the CHAMP. So LCAS was an initiative of the presidency and Bloomberg Philanthropies, Michael Bloomberg. It was a remarkable collaboration. It has not achieved before in that way in a blue zone with the president's agenda. It was not the goal itself. It was producing a concrete agenda, which is the CHAMP, and numerous documents, numerous papers, reports were released. And that was really have elevated our engagement in the UNFC space to a new height. It was supported by then the ministerial 4 days later. This was taking lessons learned from the first year, but the power of the LCAS was, of course, very instrumental. And we as LGMA contributed in its shaping. We have nominated subnational speakers, both as the national pairs or at the opening and closing or independent. And we have contributed to the outcome statement so that we had been part of this process actively because the proposal of urbanization and climate ministers coming together was originally a proposal from LGMA back in 2013. So it is not our mandate or responsibility. UN Habitat is the body of the UN dealing with the urbanization ministers, UNFCCC, and is the body for climate ministers. But we believe dialogue between ministers of urbanization and climate will help the LGMA, will help local and regional governments. Therefore, we were very, very actively engaged in this process. We have been keeping our home at the cities and regions home at the Blue Zone Multi-Level Action and Urbanization Pavilion with remarkable collaboration with co-conveners at ICLE and UN Habitat, but as well as co-host Scotland and Bloomberg Philanthropies in collaboration with GCOM and C40 as well. So that it was throughout the 2 weeks from night and day that was empowering our engagement. And it was also the moment where we discuss our strategies, not just showcase our achievements, but we also use the space to consult, to kick off our engagements, such as reaching out to the delegations through our Step Up campaign. We said that now we have delivered with presidency and ministerial. It is time for other parties, the endorsers of CHAMP, to be actively involved in the negotiations, to put texts into the document. We have produced numerous alternative texts. We have circulated to our partners in the delegations. We have consulted with them. We have followed the drafts, and we have made contributions, and we achieved this remarkable paragraphs on the Emirate consensus. Um, we can definitely make sure that all our documentation is tracked in our virtual homepage, which virtual home, which is the Cities and Regions LGMA website. It contains all our interventions, announcements, links, and recordings, so that everybody can also go back and track all these achievements. Finally, COP28 was a remarkable era because we have actively engaged in the stocktakes. Let's remember, stocktake was originally a plan for an event to be in the COP for a one-off event. Then it was expanded with technical dialogues at 1.5 years dialogue. And we said that, why don't you repeat the Talanoa spirit? So we had convinced the negotiators to agree on the first meeting of the stocktake in June 2022 that local stocktakes can also contribute to the global stocktakes. So we immediately rolled out these local stocktakes. We have convened this meetings from the north and south, from the east to west, more than 25 sessions. We had brought our results, we had brought the voice together with our partners from the Yungo constituency, the mayors, the constituencies have been both active in their councils and town halls, but as well as in the negotiation rooms, at the pavilions, in Dubai. We finalized our report. We have made our voices heard with the Marrakesh Partnership event even. And now we are saying that, okay, this experience was good. The stock take is at least the first one is over, but we will not stop here. So we are now advancing for our town hall COPs, which is now to be designed in line with what we will do with CHAMP and all the negotiation agendas. So this was history. Uh, Long history, short history. Uh, so now let's start to look at to the future. UN climate process is really an annual process. It has both historic tracking of the decisions, but every year there are new decisions, and the country, or usually the political national governments who hosts those conferences, uh, is the one who is responsible for the implementation of its outcomes. It is mainly a process throughout the year, especially the more active role comes from the existing presidency until June. But starting from June onwards, the incoming presidencies can also start to shape their delegations and put their priorities and start to consult with the parties and the constituencies, so that then we come to the COP, Conference of Parties, in a much more prepared and well designed outcomes. The presidency will continue with its own leadership. Sultan Al Jaber was a remarkable leader. Razan Mubarak, she was magnificent. The Emirates had another experience. They have, first of all, for the first time, announced their own youth champion and their domestic coordinator. Domestic coordinator was also taking place in the Egyptian and the English, the UK, the British presidency as well. Um, but this was not an official UNFCCC mandate. But with the outcome of consensus, now we have officially three roles: the president of the COP, the high level climate action champion, and the youth climate champion. Surprisingly, Azerbaijan, which will be the COP president in end of the year, now at the moment it is president designated incoming presidency, it was surprising because they were announced in the last 2 days of COP. Finally, negotiations were over. There was a big discussion about who will be the host on behalf of Eastern Europe group. So Azerbaijan was announced in the last deal, but they started a very fast. As far as I can remember, they are the fastest presidency who have announced officially their internal domestic teams and started to share this globally. The first announcement came on the 15th of January. Then a second announcement came. The hosting committee, domestic committee, expanded with other representatives, most of them original from national governments. All of them were male. There were feedbacks, there were critics. Azerbaijan presidency have heard all these critics. They have expanded their host committee with females, with non-party stakeholders. And yesterday, they have announced their high-level climate action champion for the first time, a parliamentarian, which means it's not an executive staff or elected political leader of the executive body, which is the government. Nigar Arpadaray is an independent member of the Milli Majlis of Azerbaijan. So it is the first time a parliamentarian will be taking this role. And the youth climate champion is also announced at the same time. She is now the first official COP youth climate champion, Leyla Hasanova. Both of them are females, young, which is demonstrating how it's important to have this kind of feedback loops that host countries can always have the chance to take lessons learned as long as they're open. And in the case of Azerbaijan, we have heard, we have seen that they are listening to our critics or voices, and they are responding positively. One other good news in the domestic committee, we also have the ministries of urban planning in the domestic committee, which will be the responsible for both the urban and climate ministry, hopefully, that will be another agenda, as well as the World Urban Forum, which will be taking place in Baku in 2026. So Azerbaijan will continue to be the bridge to be between the bridge between urban and climate community, just like Egypt has done, just like Emirates have been also doing in that sense. So it is an exciting era. So we have the first map, let's say overview of our roadmap. Um, this is following our traditional approach that we try to split our year-round engagement in three work streams or three channels. One, the LGMA, the local government administrators. We have our own coordination meetings. We have our own summits. We have our own initiatives. It is also equally important that our decision-making bodies, our general assemblies, congresses, are the places where we shape our positions, and we will receive input from these processes. The second one is the official UNFCCC and UN processes. When we say UN, we are also expanding it beyond the UNFCCC. It's convention only, but we have UNEP, we have UN Habitat, we have World Health Organization, we have UN Secretary General, we have ECOSOC. There are so many interactions, especially with the SDGs and especially the climate agenda going into emergency mode with Dubai. Then there's the global initiatives, which means they are not bounded by the UN principles or UN procedures. It depends, the way these events or processes are organized depends on the countries or the institutions who host or lead this process. So you can always question why not, why are we in, or why are we not in this way, or why are we excluded? But it's their decision. And sometimes we can be very active, sometimes we can be sidelined. It's a it's a journey, and it's even in the same process, year by year, there may be things changing because presidencies can follow different priorities and choices. Meanwhile, when we say global, we also follow the domestic agendas because at the end of the day, the Congress of Parties are decisions of the national governments. National governments, in most cases, are bounded by their votes of their national constituencies through their elections at federal or national level. So we intervene because especially LGMA, our constituency, local governments, are also political uh, animals, you can say. We are also elected in most cases, or we are appointed by the governments, so that we are the leadership at the national federal level shapes the Congress of Parties. So if we have to make a change at the COP, we have to start working at home, at the capitals, at the communities. So this agenda is also important. So I am not going all the details here, but the bird's eye view demonstrates to us that this year in 2024, several things are very specific. First of all, it's the super year for Rio conventions plus World Urban Forum. So the Conference of Parties of Nature, Biodiversity, Climate, and Desertification, plus World Urban Forum are all expected or scheduled to be held on in October, November, December. This means a huge workload because we are ICLE is representing uh, the global task force in these three conventions, as well as World Urban Forum is a collective space with the global task force. Plus, we have the UN Summit of the Future of the UN Secretary General. This is once in a lifetime opportunity. So this is a super year for UN process. On the at the beginning of the year, we will also have the UN Environment Assembly, which is a regular cyclic process. But it's at the beginning of the year, which is also giving us a good opportunity that through this discussions or resolutions, we can also expect to shape those other agendas. UN Environment Assembly is regularly convened in Nairobi every 2 years biannually, and we have been hosting cities and regions summits since then. In between, we will be hearing there will be regional climate weeks of the UNFCCC. We will be participating in the ministerials, informal ministers, Copenhagen, Petersburg, and pre-COP. Um, from the global agenda, we have a follow-up from a legacy from Dubai Global Forum on Buildings and Climate. Buildings communities finally launching their ambitious breakthrough, and this is the kickoff. We will have G7 environment ministers, urban ministers, and we will have, and this year, culture ministerial will also be important for us. And obviously, we will have G20. Similarly, there's no urban ministers in G20, but there's climate ministers as well as the Leaders Summit of G7, both uh, in June and as well as uh, the Leaders Summit of G20 during COP, the second week of COP in Rio. From LGMA perspective, we will convene again in February in Barcelona, our regular consultation of the Global Task Force, our biggest umbrella. We will continue, especially with daring cities, this year, a special event is happening in the UNFCCC, which is IPCC AR7 Cities report. It's the first ever special report of IPCC, which was a legacy from 2016. So this is another example that you cannot expect things to happen overnight in the diplomatic communities. Uh, if we had not pushed for an agenda for cities in 2016 in Nairobi in April, 2016, if we did not convene Edmonton Cities Conference, we would not reach to this AR7 special report on cities. So the official kickoff of the special report on cities, which is expected in 2027, will be in April in Riga. We are really, really excited that so many urbanists, so many members of urban community and scientists are already announced. We have already heard so many of our colleagues there. The official list will be released soon. Obviously, we will be part of the shaping of this process. Um, we will have Urban 7 Mayor Summit this year. ICLE's Sao Paulo World Congress in June will be critical because we hope we could use this, like this year, like last year, is the kick of our LGMA roadmap to Belém. Belém is an active member of ICLE. We have been working with them in COP28 in Dubai, but we will continue to work with them also in the Amazonas Forum. So Sao Paulo will be the moment where we can announce our position statement towards COP29, and we can have this open consultations and convene again in September onwards. Innovate for Cities is again this year's unique agenda in Montreal. We have talked about COPs, and it's very likely that during the G20 Leaders Summit in Rio, for the first time ever, Brazilian presidency is announcing a social summit before the G20 summit, heads of state summit. So it's very likely that Urban 20 Mayor Summit will also be a part of this process. This is designed so that it will be in the second week of COP in Baku. So this means that we can still expect a World Climate Action Summit extended version or revised version again happening in the first week. We hope we can have a local climate action summit. We are aware presidency and UNFCCC is discussing about new formats, which is exciting, but we cannot announce because it's not officially shared yet. Um, but we are confident that the legacy will continue. Of course, we will aim to have our pavilion again, and this is where we will be engaged throughout these years. Just to let you know, other than these are highlights. There are numerous, especially regional events that we do not see here. This is just a bird's eye view, but we have our own LGMA COP29 tracker document, and this is the moment where we can feed on your event so that we can update this as appropriate. My final point to conclude for this presentation is that we have already defined our priority that we will focus on CHAMP, we will advance the town hall COPs, and we will follow UNFCCC again. But how is the question? In the past 2 years, from Glasgow onwards, we have announced several working groups. We have adaptation, finance, loss and damage finance working group. We have seen the benefit of these specified or experts because the agenda is so huge. Not anyone of all our constituents can be knowledgeable of all the topics, not only just knowledgeable, but also attend all these workshops and meetings. So we have to delegate more members of our teams from our constituencies that we receive their inputs and we ask them to follow details, nitty-gritty details. That's why we were successful in Dubai. So now that we have seen an expanded agenda, it makes just a very common sense that we have to announce new working groups. We have had this with the communications team demonstrating such a powerful collaboration. My colleague Ariel has been working with all of you, and she's also here in this group. So we can continue on our work on transparency. The cities matter, integrity matter. There had been processes that we were not very happy. We can make it much better with this experience now. Nature, food, and culture, a complete new era. The youth engagement, gender, the ACE, Action for Climate and Environment, another group. Capacity building technology, a lot of mechanisms going on. Just transition work program is an agenda now, officially a mandated process. And overall, our COP29 coordination, which means dialogue with the presidency, the champions, outside the UNFCCC, our dialogue with the Global Task Force, UN Summit of the Future, can all be part of this. So we are expecting that in the next couple of weeks, we continue to exchange our ideas, but these are the spaces that we can start to be dedicating or delegating our colleagues so that they all feed every month in our webinars. They can all feed into our bulletin so that we can really shape this agenda together and make sure we follow up the implementation and we continue to raise the bar higher because especially let's remember the success will be clarified in Belém in 2025. We have to make sure new NDCs with multi-level collaboration is bringing the power of ambition and action that the world needs at the UNFCCC and at the local level as well, and the national level as well. And our colleagues from under two also already made a list of all the agendas that we have been expected to provide inputs by submissions, deadlines. Obviously, we have to start drafting this. I have concluded. Um I know it's really not easy to follow only one person speaking for 40 minutes, but this was the nature of today's session. So I already have received inputs in the Q&A or chat box from Claudio from C40, Heloise from Regions 4. I know you are familiar, both technically, you can also be hopefully easily using the technology that if you wish, actually, you can take the floor and speak loudly about your points. If not, I can read it. I also know my colleague Ariel is here. If Ariel wants to intervene, I also know we have a friend and an ally, Malini Mehra from Globe, but also from London Assembly, also the Globe Parliamentarians Constituency spokesperson. So the floor is open. I see Hello is already raised her hand. Let's start with Hello, but we can go to then Claudio, Malini, and Ariel if appropriate. Hello, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yep, very well.
Hi everyone, Eloise here from Regions 4. So already a big thank you, Eunice, for kickstarting the year. We've been really happy about our collaboration last year. We're co-leading with the Committee of European Regions, the working group on adaptation. And maybe this would be something to think about is how could we maybe work more cross working groups? Obviously, we know finance is a huge issue this year. It's crucial for adaptation. A lot of our messages this year will be around financing for adaptation. So that would be maybe something for the next webinar is talking a little bit more how working groups work, who's part of the working group. We had done a call for people to join our working group last year. Maybe we could do another one this year, and maybe looking a little bit at that process of, what are we planning for this year per working group? How do we work with each other? I think that would be helpful for us as well to understand and plan for our engagement.
Excellent. Hello. First of all, also personally and institutionally, a huge thanks and congratulations to Regions for all your engagement in the process, especially in addition to adaptation. You were also very active, or part of the adaptation. You were also active in the high-level champions work, the race to resilience as well. So fully agreed with your points. What I suggest, you remember, I haven't given the link here, but we have this LGMA COP29 tracker. One of my proposal would be that what we can create a new sheet, putting all these working groups and ask colleagues to nominate their names, individuals, so that then we can ask them to get together during the next couple of weeks, so that they all come back with their first ideas at the next webinar in February. So that could be one way of work that we can consider, but we are open for all the other ideas from others as well. Um, Claudio C40, our lead in the loss and damage finance group. Would you like to intervene, or shall I read your statement in the chat box? Um, Meanwhile, Ariel, would you like to come in at this round for the comms group and your ideas, suggestions, or any inputs? Claudio is coming. Um,
Hi, can you hear
Perfect.
me? Sorry, I
Yep.
didn't have access. It's actually not Claudia, it's Marta Stenzer from the
Ah,
Inclusive Climate Action Team at C40 Cities. I
okay.
used Claudia's link, hence the technical issue. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Yunus. Thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation. At C40, at the Inclusive Climate Action Team, as you may know, we have been supporting many cities on just transition and good green jobs. It's part of our mission. Because of this opportunity in 2024, we would like to take this work further. And I was wondering, what's the plan of LGMA to engage in the Just Transition work program? We would appreciate any intel you might have on the proposed calendar of work, other than what's already published in the official channels. That would help us plan our potential support and collaboration with you folks. Thank you very much.
It was Marta, I guess. Sorry if I couldn't.
That's correct, Marta.
Good, Marta. Thanks a lot. So, yes, let's remember, I can briefly respond in the sense that Just Transition Work Program was one of the ambitious outcome of Dubai Emirates Consensus. It is now officially a negotiation agenda. So all what we have done in the past is now possible to feed in. We have been involved in two ways in the Dubai. We had nominated a speaker at the opening of the first ministerial, and it was Mayor Bala from Hoboken from the US. The second one was there was an open dialogue where Scottish government was also providing a keynote, and I contributed later on as LGMA. So at least we have given the first inputs, and we can share the we can check the intervention statements there. I'm sure there are so many overlaps. But as you said, from now on, there is an input. For example, if you have seen from the calendar, there is a submission deadline. I think it's one of the earliest. It's okay that we may miss some of the deadlines, but obviously, starting from June onwards, there will be regular discussions. So I fully support or encourage when we open this LGMA tracker that you are included in the you access to this file so that you nominate your colleagues so that you start to discuss. I, honestly speaking, do not know the full details of this Just Work Transition program. I haven't read it in full detail. So those who have been expertise and interested, they should go and read this document and then come up with a proposal and share with us in the plenary of like webinars or and other communications that those experts in this space help us, and we, especially as LGMA focal point, our experience, we can provide this recommendations how we can navigate it. But the real guidance, or let's say the real inputs, should come from the experts of this field. So that will be my recommendation, and I'm happy to shape it together and look forward to your uh, continuous contributions. Hello, I see your hand raised again, but I would like to give the floor to Ariel first, so that I assume you can contribute afterwards, if it is not a second time of speech.
Great, thanks, Eunice. Hello to everyone. I hope you've had a good, restful New Year, and here we are already 1/12 of the way through the year. For communications, I definitely support having a formal working group for this. I've already started working with many of your communications experts, and that's wonderful. I think for this year, just to kind of touch on some of the priorities for our comms strategy, for the LGMA, I think we can all agree on the power of the position statement from last year and really using that, both elevating it, beyond our constituency once it's drafted, and just using it as powerfully as we can as a content piece is sort of the first priority I would have. The second would be using some of the channels that we already have to better communicate your organization's priorities around the advocacy that we're doing, and then also to work with Eunice to use the webinar to effectively reach different audiences that we may be targeting. So that's a second place. And then I think the third is really thinking through what are the opportunities that you have. We were speaking with our colleagues in Under 2 about events where the LGMA perspective could be included, and really thinking through again the channels that we have all together to bring our message further. And maybe one other point that came up at the end of the year, which I think is really salient and we should be working on as we approach COP, is how do we prepare, how do we make the case to our mayors and to our leaders, governors and parliamentarians, all of these elected leaders and others who are going to attend COP, that they should, and that it's an important place for them to engage. And then once they're there, what do they do, and how can they be more effective, or even more effective at bringing the messages that we're all working towards to the right audience? So that would be maybe a fourth one that I would focus on. But that being said, again, the invitations will go out to you to connect me with your comms folks, and then to those folks I've already worked with, certainly to join up on this working group. You're muted, Eunice.
Sorry. Thanks, Ariel, as well to all the previous working groups who have been established. Just once again, all the other groups, outside, comms is different because they were officially, like, practically, they were created as a group, which was a huge support to us. So all the rest in the list that you see, it doesn't exist. So what I suggest once again, those who have started their working groups can share their information, their experience, the tools, as Ariel mentioned. Some of those tools would be also, we are in the edge of digitalization. There are so many new techniques we can use of, so that they can share this, and the others can consider what can they add. With definitely there will be some leads, some participants, and we also would suggest, as I said, let's remember these calls we are having are recorded and uploaded on the website and shared on YouTube. some of those consultations, maybe we keep it closed so that we do not have to discuss everything publicly. We have to have some privacy so that these groups can also define their own meeting sequence and whatever, so that there are all opportunities available. Of course, this is a question of resources. It's at the moment voluntary, but we are aware we have to be more professional and more specific. I see Malini also in the line, and I hope she can speak so that we can also hear from her.
Hi there, Yunus. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, very good.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent. Well, I'm just joining the chorus of thanks for your extremely interesting presentation. Really useful to set this in historical context. And you mentioned how the LGMA has really been emerged in 1995 as a major contributor to the engagement of local government and municipal authorities in the UNFCCC process. So you've got 30 years ahead of us. As you know, you were there as a founding member of GLOBE as the focal point for the informal constituency of parliamentarians. So we have a lot of catch up to do, but I took note of your characterization that we are in a new era. So we're delighted to be working with the LGMA, with yourself, under your leadership, with your leadership on this agenda, in particular because we have overlapping constituencies. So of course, we also work with subnational assemblies. The London Assembly is just one of them, the Scottish Parliament, regional assemblies, the East African Legislative Assembly, etc. So there's a strong constituency agenda that's shared by both of us. I wanted to pick up on a couple of things. So firstly, with my GLOBE hat on, just to, first of all, welcome the recent appointments that have been made. Of course, we very warmly welcome the appointment of the new high-level champion of Nigar Apadorai, a member of the National Assembly. She's an independent. We've already reached out to her and seek to work with her, both in her capacity as the high-level champion, but also to support the National Assembly in Azerbaijan. As most of you will know, the country is going to the polls on February the 7th. There are presidential elections taking place. So it's a big moment for the country. The broader context in terms of elections, of course, is that this is not just a super year for the Rio conventions. It is a super year in terms of elections in the world. So almost half of the global population is heading to the polls. We have 64 countries which are going to be holding national elections. So we can expect to see a great deal of political action, potentially turbulence in some countries. So that really is something that, of course, we'll all be watchful for. For GLOBE, this is our bread and butter. We're going to be seeing who the new intakes are, whether there have been reversals, whether the champions that we used to rely on for climate and environmental advocacy in parliaments have been replaced, lost their seats, and who are the new ones who are coming in. So that's the context for our work. The other thing is, of course, working with the three presidencies. So COP28 presidency, we had a very clear structure for engagement with them. And we're watching and waiting to see what the structure for engagement will be with this new presidency. Whether there is going to be a troika forming between the COP28 presidencies, COP29, and of course, COP30. And I know so many of us are already looking to work in that troika manner. So we are already, in close dialogue with the Brazilian host for COP30, both at the governmental level as well as the parliamentary and broader stakeholder level. So that's a key point there. My question for you in this context was how to engage the city of Baku. And also, secondly, is to think in terms of the city, the logistics challenges. So we know that this was a very surprise announcement in the last days of COP28 that it was going to be hosted by Azerbaijan. To their credit, they have responded extremely quickly with making a number of announcements about the key people. And I should also mention that there is another woman who has been appointed, who is the chair of the COP29 Azerbaijan organizing committee, and that is Nermin Yarkalova. So the team is assembling, but we know that they'll be faced with a number of challenges, logistics not least, and our understanding is that this COP is going to be very different from what we saw at COP28, which had 100,000 people. What I've heard is that the numbers of hotel beds is, something around 18,000 in Baku. So the size of the COP is the first thing that is coming to mind in terms of level of ambition. It's not going to be a very, very large COP. What kind of COP remains to be seen, of course, and this is where the dialogue with the Azerbaijan host is going to be, we're looking forward to that. Just moving quickly with, and just to end with this point, is really with moving to my hat as London Climate Action Week ambassador. So we're delighted to be participating as a member of the LGMA group for the first time. So I'm an ambassador for London Climate Action Week. This is not just something that happens during 1 week at the end of June. This is now an all year round process where we, at the London-wide metropolitan level, engage. This is an independent initiative. We engage all of the major stakeholders in London, from local government, but business and finance, arts and culture, a whole host of other partners. And this year, the dates will be the 22nd to the 30th of June. So we're really looking to see how we can be included in that intimidating calendar that you have there, but really looking to see where the alignments are and how London Climate Action Week can also be an important landing point for some of the ambitions, the objectives that you set yourself, the Eunice, for the constituency. So those are the key points and questions I wanted to make. Handing back over to you. Thank you, Eunice. Thank you, everyone.
This was extremely valuable, Malina. Thanks a lot. This is really, really helpful. A couple of points, obviously, you have raised here. It's also overlapped some of the points raised in the chat box by other colleagues. For example, Heloise was mentioning about the expectations for COPs. I know just 2 minutes left. We can be a bit flexible if possible. But if there are no others, do we have any other hands raised? I see one more. Kata, do you see who else is raised hand? Or
No, Malini's
no?
hand is still raised, but all good.
Malini. Okay, fine, no worries. So on your points, Malini, first of all, yes, definitely. So for colleagues, multi-level, for our perspective, ICLE has always been suggesting, as Malini has been also underlining, that it includes legislative bodies at all levels. Because as you all remember, I mean, you all know in the democratic societies, executive bodies, the governments, have to be accountable for their parliaments, be it at the national, state, or municipal council level. So their choices is also important. Particularly, most of the climate emergence declarations were adopted by the parliaments or councils. So councillors, members of parliament, uh, they're all valuable actors of multi-level action. Therefore, as fully agree with Malini, we have a strong synergy to work together. Secondly, yes, congratulations for having one of your members in the being champion. So we look forward to your additional guidance and connections. Obviously, we will use the official channel by the high-level climate action champions, but it's always good to have this personal relation. Your question about Baku is very valid. I must confess, I mean, Caucasus, Central Asia, former Soviet republics in Central Asia, from both ICLE and LGMA point of view, were one of the weakest, let's say, links of our constituency. I know, for example, inside UCLG, we have UCLG Eurasia, UCLG NEVA, which have also some relations. But in the Covenant of Mayors, there are Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan. But honestly speaking, they're not too much active. I personally don't have a relation to Baku. One very big advantage for us this year and the next couple of years is that, as you all remember, before Baku was announced as the COP29 host, Baku was announced as World Urban Forum, 13th World Urban Forum to be hosted in 2026. It was almost in the same days of COP. So this means UN Habitat has the direct access to Ministry of Urbanization, and very likely to the host city of Baku. We would be more than happy. I mean, UN Habitat, obviously, because of a UN agency, they are not an official member of LGMA, but we're friends and part of the family, the extended family. And UNHABITAT has always been very actively supporting all our advocacy as appropriate, based on, of course, limitations of their UN mission as appropriate, without violating those. So we will look forward to support from colleagues from UN Habitat, but any colleague, any contact you would build to us is also valuable. So look forward to it. Probably, I'm expecting in the next couple of days we may have some new contacts being introduced either by UNFCCC or champions or however. But if any recommendation, feel free to connect us. And your final point, yes, it's also true for two reasons that every time when there's a peak COP, the next couple of COPs are usually relatively less in terms of expectations because the main decisions adopted in a major COP is usually having a mandate of 2 or 3 years. Uh, that is one reason. Second, second reason, one reason why it's possible to expect Baku COP to be a bit lower in terms of agenda and level of participation and number of participation. The second is obviously Dubai has really raised the bar higher in an exceptional phase space level, and they had also mobilized huge private and their financial resources. And I don't think neither Azerbaijan nor Baku nor their partners have such a resource as well. And third, it's also a time to question, do we really need 100,000 people to be attending a COP for 2 weeks? I am very convinced that there is a need to redesign the way COPs are convened, especially in this age of technology, especially in this more notion of domestic action, and especially where we are proposing town hall COPs, a mechanism to intervene so that mayors and governors, and that's the response to Eloise. Yes, we also believe they don't have to attend every COP every year the same person because they're already having huge trouble at home when they go back home. They're questioned by their media, they're questioned by their communities, there should be really a convincing reason, and there should be opportunities to contribute to the COP also virtually more effectively. Also, more importantly, that your contributions to the climate action is documented or charted before COP, so that it is used in appropriate channels and reach to the audience. So therefore, I personally hope that we will not have another 100,000 COP, and it's also another reason, and the fourth reason is that we will have an even different case, which is Belém. Brazil will have even more difficulties to have a logistical challenge. I mean, in Amazonas, in the heart of Amazonas, there would be less and less spaces than Baku. So these are all the points we have to take into account. I believe this is the things that we have to discuss, continuing and share intelligence and continue. And we're more than happy to have London Climate Week and London Assembly joining us. I know we were discussing the London Town Hall COPs. I think, obviously, London is also going to elections in May. So definitely we will have to continue. And okay, my colleague Kata is also alerting me that we have to close this because there's an overlap. I'm so sorry, Kata, I didn't see it. So 5 minutes already over. I thank you all for all participants and audience. We will continue. You will get the links and we will share more updates by email. So don't forget to be enrolled to our mailing channel as well. So have a nice day and thank you all to all there. Bye bye.